Hey, what's up you guys? I'm Sara Lubratt. The channel recently hit 20,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for that. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited about some of the videos I'm going to be bringing you guys in the future. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And to celebrate, I decided to ask you guys over on my YouTube community tab what questions you might have for some questions to answer in a 20,000 subscriber Q&A. So that is what we will be doing today. If you're going to enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe if you are not already. And now without further ado, let's get into answering these questions. So in looking over these questions before we begin, I have noticed that for several of them, I have made videos about previously. And while I will mention some answers, I will also link in the cards up here the videos where I expand upon those topics more so that you can go look at those videos after this one if you would like. All of the videos that I mentioned in this video will also be linked down in the description box below because I don't know how many the cards will actually be able to handle. So now let's get into it. The first question asks, would you self-publish if traditional doesn't work out the way you want or as quick as you want? And do you have an in-depth editing process video? I'd like to know how you edit your writing and keep track of it all. Love your vids. Thanks for the constant motivation. So this is obviously a multi-part question, but the first one, would I self-publish if traditional publishing doesn't work for DE? I honestly have not thought about it for this project. I have thought about self-publishing other projects, and I do see it being like a very viable possibility of me being a hybrid author in the future. Hybrid meaning some traditionally published, some self-published, thus being a hybrid author between those two. I have been told that I'm very patient and very persistent, and I am very hopeful that that's going to pay off for me. So for this book, at this point in time, self-publishing is not really a consideration. I am very set on traditional publishing because since I was like really little, I wanted to be traditionally published. And so I'm definitely still very hopeful that that is what's going to happen. I have not started querying yet, but when I do really hope that I will be able to find an agent and a publisher that want to champion my story. Do I have an in-depth editing process video? I do for what I was doing in draft 6. And when I finish Project DE, I will go through and basically explain what I did in every single draft, which is a video that I'm really excited about doing, and kind of like my takeaways and what I would do again and which parts of the process I would skip. Because ideally, a book for me in the future will not take 7 drafts. This was very much a learning process, and I'm really excited to break that down in a video. And then this is not really a question, but the part where it says, I'd like to know how you edit your writing and keep track of it all. In that video, I talk about how I was editing my writing for draft 6, and I keep track of all of my progress in a spreadsheet, which I also made a video on, but a very long time ago. It was probably like one of my first 5 videos that went up on YouTube. So I'm not gonna say it's any good, but there is a video that exists about that. If you could read one book for the rest of your life, what would it be? This one I knew like in a heartbeat, although now that I'm answering it, I kind of want to change my answer. So I'll give 2 answers, but the other answer is a trilogy, and I know that this is a single book. So if I could only read a singular book for the rest of my life, it would be Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, which is book 4 of 8 in the Throne of Glass series. I feel like whichever series of hers that you start with is the one that you love the most. And I started with Throne of Glass, absolutely adore Throne of Glass. On top of having like everything that I could possibly want, there's also dragons. So, I mean, that's pretty sick. They're technically wyverns, but we're just gonna ignore that. But that would be the book that I would read if I could only read one book for the rest of my life. If I could read a trilogy though, it would probably be the series that got me into dragon books, which would be Dragon Slippers, which is a middle grade trilogy written by Jessica Day George. And those are the books that just made me fall in love with dragon books in the beginning. And I have not reread them in a while, but I've been wanting to. I don't have them here with me. They're still at my parents' house. I suppose I could go out and buy another copy, but she's actually like a Utah author, and so now it's a dream of mine to meet her. So essentially whatever I would choose would have to have some kind of dragon in it, and both Queen of Shadows and Dragon Slippers fit that bill. What are the best tips you've learned from the editing process of draft 6? Could be anything from prose to story structure. I love editing. That was probably one of my biggest takeaways, is it's so much fun to get to a part in the process of writing a book where you really get to focus on word choice, because I know that I at least can beat myself up when I'm starting to draft a story and what's being put on the page is just not what I had in my head, because that's just part of writing a book. The rough draft is you telling yourself the story, and then the editing and the revising is getting that story closer to what you can picture in your head. And draft 6 was really what was getting the story there for me, was getting to play around with the word choice and the sentence structure and how my paragraphs were laid out and how characters interact, and really like fine-tuning some of those details, which was really fun to start seeing this project that I've been working on for so many years like really start to feel like a book. Ooh, but best tips. Don't do what I did, which is not applicable to draft 6 at all, but don't waste drafts, because I wasted drafts 4 and 5 in focusing on wording instead of focusing on beta reader feedback, which was like, hey, this part of the story is not working for me. So then I focused on phrasing and line editing to what I wanted the story to say without actually fixing the story problems, which then I had to go in and fix in draft 6 on top of the phrasing, because some parts of the story were ready to have that phrasing looked at. Other parts I needed to like rewrite chapters and add in new chapters because characters were doing different things than they were in drafts 4 and 5, and basically what they needed to be doing since getting beta reader feedback after draft 3, I believe. And I just chose to ignore that for drafts 4 and 5. So that's my advice, which is like kind of complicated advice because at that point in time when I was starting drafts 4 and 5, I didn't know how to fix the problem. And I didn't know how to fix the problem until draft 6. So it's kind of complicated advice to be like, don't do that. But I also didn't know what to do. And so that's what I ended up doing because I didn't know what else to do. Hi, Sarah. I simply love your content on IG as well as here. I am a writer myself and I'm still overcoming my fear to be in front of the camera. Do you have any tips for that? I still want to talk about my work. It's just when it actually comes to doing it, I bail. I don't know if this person is talking about longer form content like YouTube or shorter content like Instagram Reels or TikTok or something. But either way, I strongly suggest sitting down and doing a practice video with no intention of filming it. Like I'm literally sitting alone in my apartment talking to my phone on a tripod right now. It does feel kind of weird when you get started, but the only way to actually get better is to practice. And so you can totally just start with filming a couple of videos with absolutely no intention of posting them, just to practice getting more comfortable in front of the camera. It's also so much fun to be able to look back on videos, both on Instagram and here on YouTube, to see how far I've come in this process. And I can look back. I think I have videos all the way back to finishing the first draft of my book, which are really fun for me to like be able to look back on. And so I guess you might want to consider like why you're doing it. If you're doing it to talk about your book, that's amazing. But the reason that I keep posting is so that I can look back on my content in the future, because I already can see how far I've come and I'm just excited to be able to continue seeing that progress in the future. There's construction outside, so I'm so sorry if you guys can hear that. They waited until I started filming to start working outside. Another tip, especially for posting on Instagram or any other like shorter form content site, because I don't know how easy it is to block people on YouTube, but if you are nervous about posting because of your family and friends seeing it and not being supportive, block them or start a new account. Like there's no pressure, but there's an Instagram audio that I recently used that goes something along the lines of your social media is not for your friends and family, it's for you and your goals. And so if there are people that you feel like are holding you back because you are nervous about posting and them seeing it, block them. Or you can start a new account. I post so much more freely on my writing Instagram, which has like 51,000 followers, than I do on my personal Instagram, because I know those people and I know that only my friends that really believe in me chose to follow my writing Instagram. And I know that the people that choose to follow my writing Instagram want to see me succeed, want to read my book. So I'm really glad that I started that account several years ago at this point, potentially like upwards of like 5 or 6 years ago. I want to say I started it in like 2018. And I started that before I started my YouTube channel, just as a way to document my progress in writing a book. And now we're at 5 books. So those are my tips. I did make a video when I got to 1,000 YouTube subscribers about how to grow an authortube channel if you want to check that video out. That noise is terrible. I really hope it's not picking up. Every viewer has different types of favorite content, so what kind of videos do you enjoy making the most? I love making writing vlogs because that is literally about me writing, and so therefore if I'm not writing, I can't make the videos, so I can use making the videos to hold myself accountable to the writing, which kind of feels like a life hack, and I'm here for it. But my favorite kind of writing vlog are my adventure writing vlogs, which are basically when I'm on trips or hiking. The hiking ones are my favorite, especially because I feel so much more creative when I'm out in the mountains, which is why I moved to Utah in the first place. And so I love my adventure writing vlogs. And I mean, I feel like this is kind of cheating, but I love the videos where I can like accomplish milestones. I also love like the writing a book in 30 days videos. So like my NaNoWriMo vlogs, because I have nano vlogs, but then I also have done, I believe 2 videos where I vlog my word count for every day. And those are really cool. And I find those to be very motivating. So I often will go back and watch those. I also have a playlist for myself called My Favorite Videos. Again, every video I'm mentioning will be linked down in the description box below. But my favorite video playlist is literally that. Those are my favorite videos of my own to go back and watch, which often include hiking or traveling or hitting milestones. And they're just the ones that I find the most motivating and kind of help show me how far I've come. So I've kind of compiled those all into a playlist so that they're easy for me to go back and access. I'm 16, I just completed high school and off to a college, and I want to start writing a book. Can you give me just a few important tips to start? At the beginning of every year, I make a video called How to Write a Book in, for example, this year, How to Write a Book in 2024. And I try to basically just give my most helpful tips for that. And my tips kind of change year over year as I continue to learn more, but a couple of my biggest tips would probably be to try and figure out what you want to write about. That's the most important thing. If you have a book that you want to write, then the rest is pretty easy. It's not actually that easy. You still have to show up. But as soon as you can figure out what you want your book to be, you don't have to know what your book is going to be about right away. You can just start the practice of writing, and then hopefully a book idea will fall into place. But my first and biggest tip is to basically remember your goal, but also remember that you have other responsibilities, especially if you're starting college. Schoolwork will come first. And trust me, I did not always listen to that, and I graduated, so take it with a grain of salt. But I know that for most people, school or work or families are a big part of their lives, obviously, I would hope so. And so you need to be aware of where writing falls in your priorities. And even if it's not the top thing, which for most people it's not, but maybe it's like the third to fifth thing, it's important to try and schedule your writing time to make sure that you continue to show up for yourself. I have a video on the power of writing consistently, which basically is just talking about how fast words can compound and add up into a full book or many, many books in a year, depending on how much you're choosing to write every single day or every week. But schedule your time, track your writing in a spreadsheet or on a piece of paper or something. I say track your word count. I also track my time because sometimes when I'm not able to get very many words on the page, I can kind of beat myself up until I realize that I was sitting at my desk for 2 hours. And so I track both of those measurements to make sure that I am putting in both effort and time. So even if the word count isn't showing up, I know that I showed up for it. So schedule your time, track your writing, show up for your writing. So make sure you're scheduling it in, and just be kind to yourself that other things will come up. You might take a week or a month off of writing. That's okay. You are a writer as long as you keep coming back to writing. Which YouTube channels do you watch and find inspiring and empowering, both writing related and writing adjacent? Congrats on 20,000. I have a lot of writing friends here on YouTube that if I tried to list them all just off the top of my head, I know I would miss people. So this is a non-exhaustive list. Some of the people that come to mind, like right off the top of my head, are Sara Sutton. She's a young adult romance author. She's in like her young 20s and has 10 books published. So a couple months ago, she started doing videos where she was trying to write 20,000 words a week. And then I tried to edit 20,000 words a week because that was, the stage of the process I was in. I was working on draft 6 and I was like barely able to do 20,000 words edited. I have no idea how she writes 20,000 words in a week, but I find her videos really inspiring. I find Diane Marie's videos very like calming and inspiring. I love Anna New's videos. I love Kayla Kemper's videos. I know that I am not mentioning so many people, but those are the ones that come to my head right now. And I know this question didn't really ask this. Well, it kind of did. So I'm going to focus on the what channels do you watch to find inspiring and empowering, because I watch a lot of non-writing content. And so channels that I watch that make me feel inspired in other ways are people like Sorella Moore, Catherine Manning, and Lynette Adkins. And then I also watch like a lot of like hiking and running videos, which I know are motivating in like a different way, but to me it's the same concept, where I love watching people like training for a marathon or hiking rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, which is like a 24 or 26 mile hike, or going on like multi-day backpacking trips. And I think what I find really motivating from any of those types of videos is the commitment to the process, because it is very much delayed gratification, and sometimes it's like type 2 fun, where it doesn't feel fun until after you've completed it, because while it's happening, it's really difficult. And I think that that fits in really well with trying to write something as massive as a book that takes years upon years of practice and diligence. And so I think that's how those two things fit together for me. What has been your process to become a writer? This is a pretty simple answer. I started writing. I wrote my first book when I was 6. and I made it into a YouTube video, for better or for worse, a couple years ago. But that story, obviously I was 6 years old. I dictated a story that a 6-year-old would write to my mom, who typed it on the computer, and then we put like unicorn clip art on it, and then I printed it out and I colored the clip art. I have always wanted to write. I've always loved creating things. So for a long time, I was really interested in art, painting, drawing, ceramics. I have paintings hanging up in my apartment that I did. And then I noticed more of a shift away from like the finer physical art to writing. I had always been doing both, but I've noticed more of a shift to writing with my perfectionism, because with a drawing, I didn't like how I would do something in pencil, erase a line. You could still like sort of see where the line was. Whereas with writing on a computer, you can revise and you can edit until it looks as good as you want it to look. So I started writing when I was 6. I kind of moved away from the other art avenues, mostly, not completely, but definitely migrated way more over into writing in high school and college. Wrote my first book in high school, wrote my second book, which is Project DE, in college. And then as breaks throughout the many, many years that I've been working on Project DE, I have taken months away from DE to start other projects, which brings me up to DE, which is on draft 7, and LRF, which is the book that I wrote in high school, had many, many revisions, and I don't know what version that's on. So that one exists in some kind of format, but then the other 3 are rough drafts. I've always loved writing. I've always loved dragon books, ever since reading Dragon Slippers. Reading Dragon Slippers really sent me down a trajectory of the only books that I would read for many, many years after reading Dragon Slippers were books with dragons in them, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. But basically, the process to becoming a writer is you sit down and you write. You are a writer if you write, you're an author if you finish something, and you are a published author once you get published. Congrats, Sarah. I love watching your videos. Thank you so much. The question is, how is working for yourself going, and are you still feeling good about it? The situation has very much changed since a year and a half ago-ish, when I left my last job, because when I started, I was doing Fiverr mostly and getting paid from YouTube and Instagram Reels, which was working well. And then Instagram stopped paying, and then I kind of started freaking out, and then I burned out on Fiverr, and I kind of started freaking out, and then I started doing Fiverr again. Instagram has not come back. I got a part-time social media management job, which has been amazing. I started that like 7 or 8 months ago, and they have been so easy and so much fun to work with, and I really want to keep doing that. I'm still working on Fiverr. I don't love it as much as I did when I left my job, but Fiverr is what was bringing in enough to make it seem plausible that I could leave my job to do freelancing and work for myself. But when I sell a book, that's probably going to be the first thing that I choose to drop. I'm still loving making Instagram videos, even though I'm not getting paid for it. I'm trying to lean back into making YouTube videos because I kind of fell off of that for a little while. But I've noticed that when I'm more consistent with YouTube, I'm more consistent with my writing overall, so I want to lean back more into YouTube. Things are still feeling good. However, I quit my job to focus on trying to finish writing a book, and it's a year and a half later, so I'm very ready to be done working on book 1 of DE and start querying that and hopefully sell a book, and then start moving more towards career as a full-time author. I can't read congrats out loud in a non-sarcastic voice, but congrats. I would love to know how you keep up your momentum. Do you ever struggle with ho-hum or the blahs days, and how do you push through? Thanks so much. Love your channel. I do get the days where I'm not as motivated to write, which is where dedication and persistence come in way more than just like daily motivation, because motivation is fleeting, and while it's amazing that it happens and you should totally lean into it when it is there, it's fleeting, and the way to actually make sure that you continue showing up for yourself is to continue showing up for yourself. I have tried to do this in a number of ways, and I have kind of figured out that I just have to write before I go to bed. I tell other people to try and like schedule in like 15 minutes a day, even if you can't do more than that, because showing up for yourself and for your projects, even in that smaller amount, will add up over time. But the way that you finish writing a book is through showing up even on the days that you don't really want to show up. And I just took Walter Mosley's masterclass, and he said it really well, where if you are showing up every single day, for him it's 3 hours, but if you're showing up every day for 3 hours, then you have the next 21 hours to think about your story before you sit down and write again. And even though it might not be like super active thinking, your subconscious is still picking away at it. And he says that even if he sits down for 3 hours and nothing happens, he know that as long as he continues showing up, someday those words will flow. And there's a quote on writing, and I believe it's by Louis L'Amour, that says, "The water does not flow until the faucet is turned on." So you have to continue to show up for your writing in order for those words to even happen. So persistence and willpower over motivation, which I know really sucks, but as soon as it starts happening, it feels so good. Congrats congratulations. My question is, what motivates you to write? I have wanted to be a writer since, like I said, I was 6 years old. I have wanted to see my book on a bookshelf. I've pictured my name with the New York Times bestseller, you know, above it. I've pictured what my covers look like. I've pictured fan art of my books. I've done a lot of like the visualization pieces without even realizing that that's what I was doing. But I have stories that I want to tell and get out into the world, and is why I continue to write, because there's something so satisfying that I was learning as I was going through so many drafts of DE, of writing something down and creating something from nothing, or creating like a fully fledged idea through many, many rounds of edits that came from your brain, telling a story that can only be told in the way that you tell it. So I think it's the whole idea of creating something from nothing, and writing is just like what I've wanted to do for the majority of my life. And I'm really excited to continue writing. I'm very excited to finish DE. I'm very excited to get started on DE books 2 and 3 and other projects. I'm definitely going to give myself a break from the DE world for the next project that I work on, because I have been so good with sticking with DE that I really want to step away, work on something else, and then come back to books 2 and 3 refreshed, and then keep moving forward and keep writing. I'm currently editing this video, and I mentioned so many videos that I decided to go ahead and make a playlist for every video that I mentioned in this one. So if you want to check that out, that's up here. That's where I'm going to end this Q&A today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember that progress is progress. I encourage you to keep showing up for your writing. You're doing an amazing job. Thank you guys so much for being here for 20,000 subscribers. I really appreciate it. It means the world to me. I'm very excited for some of the videos that I have coming up. I'm very excited about getting to put some of my books out into the world. And so thank y'all again. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.